The topic is biometrics. We have actually started to see some general deployment of biometrics, but there's still a mass hang-up on it. Why do you think that's the case?
We have seen the adoption of biometrics skyrocket in the last 10 years to the point where it is mainstream. I'm shocked when I can't use my fingerprint or my face to access a bank.
At the end of the day, does the user really understand the complexities or even remember the passwords? And how do you make it easy for self-serve? The technologies are out there, but the user education portion and how do you make it easy to message is important.
As you enroll and register your fingerprint with a bank, you are associating that with the fingerprints that already exist. If a fingerprint is added after the fact, if a new face profile is added after the fact, those keys become invalidated and the registration process has to start over again.
You have a product that's designed to address certain experience. So how do you make that happen? It's more about having a rules engine that actually factors the user's prior history and tries to make sure that you're not frustrating the user with redundant forms of authentication.
You have to take a systems approach, a product approach to the solution, right? I didn't really invent the technology. I used standard technology off the shelf, but it was architected as a solution that solved a specific business problem. And if you go in there with that mindset, I think biometrics are going to be adopted.
Iris is a fantastic biometric for use. It's very, very, very accurate. It is very, very difficult to spoof. However, the cost of a solution that would use biometrics on a mobile device would make it cost prohibitive to have new cameras, new filters on the camera capabilities.
One of the first things most critical for us is not storing anything. That's generally our approach. We respect the privacy of the users.
This is an interesting one that came in from John Procap. How hard does facial recognition have with beards, with bald and hair, with people shaving, not shaving? How does facial recognition deal with that?
As biometrics have evolved and has shifted from mathematical representations of faces to now machine learning algorithms. So if you pass in millions of pictures of faces, and some of those are men with beards and bald heads or whatever the unique characteristic might be, being able to identify what is the face and then being able to match on those faces as well.
Leonard asked this question, what do you do when some biometric becomes compromised?
If you rely only on that particular method of authentication, then there's not much, right? So of course, you have to have the ability to turn off and switch rapidly to the different biometrics. You have to have a contingent control for every capability.
Now that devices are computationally powerful enough, whether you want to do biometric matching on a device or on the server. Now, when you allow it to remain on the device, all of a sudden you don't have to worry about a honeypot of biometrics being on the server.
We are now doing the Department of Yes, and there are some really good ones in here. Use a Dance Dance Revolution floor lock for your data centers.
Having that Dance Dance Revolution certainly is going to make sure that people don't forget their passwords or don't forget their key card in the car.
I would say every pattern is unique for a user, and there would definitely be subtleties we can pick up and say, hey, this is unique to this particular user.
Use tongue prints as your biometrics. It's proof of life, and the side benefit is you will only log in when you really need to log in.
I'm not going to pick up someone else's phone and try to authenticate using my tongue on their device.
I would say we want to make it personable experience from a product point of view, and this fits right into that, right, which is augmenting personable experiences.
From Mohammed, one of the misconceptions out there is that biometrics are saving personal information that wasn't stored before. Is this true, Jason, what Mohammed says?
Well, one of the strengths of biometrics is the template nature of that. You can take a face and create a mathematical representation of what that means. Instead of storing a raw image, a bank such as PNC could deploy a solution where they store just the template of that face. That template is, I won't say it's 100% guaranteed, but you cannot reverse engineer a face from that template information.
Identity is, in my opinion, right, that's my identity. I own that, but it's also public, right? I'd like to use that in a federated mode, so simplify the login process when it comes to third-party integration. You don't need to share all the data. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? You just need to, be able to have a mechanism to identify a digital footprint.
All right, I have another bad idea. When a fingerprint database gets compromised, all users have their fingers cauterized. It's the equivalent of changing your passwords.
I do have 10 fingers, so I only register one or two. So maybe even if I lose two of them, I can still verify with the other seven.
Well, with the password resets, a lot of companies have, right? So 3 attempts, but you can play around with questions 10 times.
Is there a way to be, quote, safer with our biometric data?
A lot of that has to do with where the biometrics are stored, how they're transmitted, and how they're stored at the final destination. That is a strength of being able to leverage the capabilities of the native mobile applications and mobile devices themselves.
Mm-hmm.
One of the challenges, and to simplify, is actually make it easy for customers to understand what the opportunity landscape looks like. User education, no matter how much you do, it's always not enough. The various fragmentation technologies and tools we have, I think it's really, really complex sometimes to make all of them work. But having sort of a rules engine that actually can be translated or driven by a policy, ultimately translating into how do you balance risk and customer experience.